Hey everybody, for today's video we interviewed fellow YouTuber and musician Tim Kreitz of the Tim Kreitz Band. Now, having known Tim for a while, is a lot of fun for me to kind of sit down and pick his brain and talk to him on a variety of different subjects, including his life, his moto-vlog, and his music itself. So it was a really interesting conversation and something I think you guys will enjoy. So stay tuned and thank you.
All right, here's another piece of original music for you, a little Tim Kreitz Band original. It's from a couple of years ago. Wrote this about a friend of mine who I like a lot, but who is essentially a dumbass in a lot of ways. It's not Brit. It's not Brit. I didn't look back intentionally. I look back because Brit knows who it is. This is about the guy in his 40s who decides to get into a serious relationship with a girl in her 20s. That also does not work out, in case you were wondering. It's called Following the Moon and Stars. Yeah, I was born in San Angelo, about 120 miles southeast of here, and we moved here with the mid-'70s oil boom. My mom brought us here, and we sort of fell into the culture of West Texas, which is boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust, and survived all of those. My parents still live here. My dad does. My mom's passed on. I always kind of liked it here. I was, kind of one of those guys that was pretty much at home in West Texas, and have been here ever since, with the exception of a few years here and there, college and that sort of thing, and decided to settle. My wife and I decided to settle here. So after we were through with college, we got married. We got an apartment here, lived there for about a year and a half, and then we ended up buying a house here, and the rest is history to this point.
So you came here pretty young then, or?
Yeah, I was in grade school when we moved here. Yeah, so okay. I'm a native West Texan and pretty much a native Midlander, if you want to think of it that way.
Now I know there's a lot of, whenever people think about musicians, they think about troublemakers, and is that you, or?
I would say that to an extent it used to be. I've been doing this. I've been making money making music since I was 19 years old. So, yeah, there was a time when I was a lot more rowdy and rambunctious, but I'm kind of at a point in my life right now, and actually for a while, where what's important to me is just the music. You sort of change your focus. At a certain point when you're really young, it's about a certain amount of it is about having fun and getting girls and all of that sort of stuff. And that works. That's kind of how I got my wife. So, and we've been married for 22 years. So there's an element of truth to all that. But at this point in my life, and for the past 10 years, really, I've just been really serious about composing and performing music that I think has some value to it. And that's where I am right now. I'm sort of in legacy mode, I guess you could call it.
So how did you get your start in music? Because I know, like, for me personally, my first kind of introduction into the music scene was just through, like, high school band or through middle school band. And I think part of that was my whole family kind of comes from a musical background, where my sister and my brother both teach music. And so I think it was kind of going into that, and I was just kind of wondering if that was the same experience for you, or if it was just kind of picking up a guitar, picking up an instrument at home.
I have limited musical influence within my family. My grandfather was a guitar player. My dad was not, and my brother is a drummer. In fact, my brother is the drummer for the Texas band Pump Jack that you may have heard of. So my brother and I ended up with all of the musical juice, so to speak. I originally wanted to play the drums. We both wanted to play the drums, and I was the first one to kind of bud as a musician and bloom as a musician and have an active interest in it, asking for instruments, asking for my mom and dad to buy me albums and that sort of thing. So I originally asked for drums and was told no.
It's the same thing with me.
How about a guitar instead? And that worked out great. That ended up being the best decision that they ever made for me. So I got my first guitar when I was about 8 years old. There was a guy that lived across the street from my grandparents in San Angelo. His name was Freddie Smickle. He was a friend of the family for decades. He's passed on now too. But he was a hippie dude. And in the 70s and early 80s, he had this typical hippie bus that he always parked in his driveway. And he and his friends, I'm sure, would get together in there on the weekends and do God knows what, drink a little beer, probably smoke a little weed, that sort of thing. They were just kind of cut from that hippie cloth, but they were the best people in the world. He was a bit of a guitar player. He was an acoustic player, and he was into all of the stuff at the time that was sort of folk inspired and roots rock inspired, Crosby, Stills and Nash and Bob Dylan and all that sort of stuff. So when he saw that I had a guitar one day over in my grandma's yard, he called me over and said, "Tim, come over, come hang out in the bus." And we would eat bologna sandwiches, and he would teach me how to play guitar. And that was my first instructor-student relationship, was with Freddie across the street from my grandma's house.
And I was actually going to ask about learning to play, so that was kind of leading into...
Yeah, I didn't have formal instruction on guitar or vocals until college. Mm-hmm. And I was originally going to be a music performance major. I ended up changing my major to audio production, and music performance became my minor. But I did have formal instruction in college. I had jazz and classical formal instruction there. Also, that's where I really learned how to read music properly. I was sort of half-ass at reading music, and I would prefer tablature. These days I prefer a mixture of traditional notation and tablature, simply because there are so many different voicings on a guitar where you can play the same note or note structure. But that was hugely important to me because it sort of expanded my horizons style-wise. And also right about that time, an album came out by a guy named Eric Johnson, who is a huge musical influence on me. He came out with an album in 1990 called Avia Musicom, and that also at about the same time started to shatter my concepts about what guitar music could be.
Okay. What are your musical influences? So bands that you kind of pull from or that you really like? Or...
The bands that I pull from and really like are, I mentioned Eric Johnson. That's been a huge influence, tone-wise more than anything, more than how I play, but how I sonically form my guitar tone. He is a big part of that. Another guy who I also have very little in common with from a playing standpoint or a musical style standpoint, but I've kind of modeled some of my guitar tone from is Zakk Wylde, specifically kind of back in his Ozzy days. Haven't been too carried away with what he's done recently, but that stuff grabbed me at the time and got my attention and influenced me. But the big influences are ZZ Top and the Allman Brothers and guys like Dickie Betts and guys who really understood that melody was part of guitar. And and you got a cat that's about to destroy this whole interview.
Yeah, I was just about to see if I could put him outside real quick. Hey guys, at this point in the interview, we actually stopped recording for a bit so that I could put the cats outside of the room because they had gotten in. So that way they weren't going to be disturbing us for the rest of the interview, and here it is.
The major influences to me all along have been the Southern and Texas sound, Southern rock and the Texas sound, ZZ Top and the Allman Brothers. And so that's what I've always been interested in from a songwriting standpoint. Like, I like to take the heavier guitar sounds and the more aggressive guitar attitude, but I like to put it as much as I can into a traditional context. And that's sort of where Tim Kreitz Band is right now, as far as what we're doing.
When did you actually go in and start writing original pieces? So the music and then the...
I started writing songs in junior high.
In junior high.
And they were horrible. You just don't have enough life experience to write a meaningful song when you're 12 years old or 13 years old. But I did start dabbling in things like what words rhyme, what concepts go together, what concepts don't go together, how does the attitude of the lyrics affect the attitude of the music and the direction of the music and the arrangement of the music. So I think it was good experimentation to get started doing that real young, but every once in a while I'll be out at my dad's house digging through an old foot locker or something and find some old lyrics I wrote on the back of a school paper, and they're just absolutely horrifying.
Now, I know you kind of said that you really got serious into music going into college. Mm-hmm. Did you have any just like minor bands, or were you playing in a band before that?
Yeah, I was playing. In fact, I was in a touring band through the second half of college. In fact, the drummer Brett, who you met the other night at the end of summer party, he and I have been playing together since 1990, and he and I have just sort of come up through the ranks together and played in a bunch of different touring bands together, from the Atomics, which was our first road band, all the way up to just over the past 3 or 4 years doing the Tim Kreitz Band, and also touring for the last 3 or 4 years with Creed Fisher, as he has sort of risen up in Texas music and red dirt music.
Anything in high school, or
Had a high school band. It wasn't great. But that was fun. I can remember my senior year playing a few shows for free and kind of getting a taste for that positive audience feedback. That was the first time in my life where I'd kind of experienced that. I get up on stage and I played something and someone goes kind of a little bit nuts over it, even though they probably shouldn't have at the time, but we were all kids. That first taste of that audience-performer relationship, that back and forth, was during high school, and I think that's one of the things that really hooked me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about the start of the Tim Kreitz Band. So going from college, from whenever you started kind of touring, doing your road band, mm-hmm. going on into finding the members, and then going on to the creation of the Tim Kreitz Band itself.
Well, the Tim Kreitz Band actually started off as a band called Dingo Sanctuary, and it started off as a 4-piece band in the early 2000s, in fact, 2002, 2003. We did that for a while, and then we had a lineup change. The guy who was singing for us, we went through a couple of different singers, just couldn't really find a sound. That band struggled. We did 2 albums with that band, and they sound vastly different from one another. The first album had a different singer. The second album was more of the sound as I was starting to create what I wanted it to sound like on the second album. And it was a 3-piece band at that time, and I was doing all the vocals and all of that sort of thing. So,
were you still writing the lyrics and putting together arrangements for everything?
Yeah, I was writing, arranging, producing, everything. So that second album I was really proud of at the time. I look back on it now, and it has its artistic flaws compared to how I would do it today. Of course, that was 6 years ago was the last Dingo Sanctuary album. But I still, looking back, am proud of that album. The thing that got me was that it failed miserably, as far as the only people who liked it were other musicians. All my other musician friends across Texas and elsewhere had to have that album. Send me that album. I'll send you money for that album. I got to have it. We put it up on iTunes. We put it up on iTunes for people to download. But the only places where it got any kind of airplay was in Europe. It got airplay in Spain, and it got some airplay in the UK, and it got some airplay in Portugal, I believe, which is weird for Spain and Portugal to be spinning that record, but they were. I couldn't get any support for it in Texas, and especially not in West Texas. The album was ignored, and that sort of broke my heart. I'd worked really hard on the album. We had finished it up down in Austin, and it sounded good. I felt like half the songs on the album could have been released. I felt like they had potential to be singles. But nobody would play the songs. There was no structure at the time, and arguably there's still not a structure in Texas for rock music. Texas has a very good country music system. It's got the Texas Music Charts, the TRRR. There's a network of radio stations that are all country stations, some of which are dedicated solely to playing Texas music, but not Texas rock music. So my influence there started to shine through, and then I realized I needed to take this sound and make it more bluesy, more red dirt, something that could cross over between people who like the rock sound and people who like that red dirt sound, that Texas sound. And so that's where we are right now, and that's the album that we're working on right now and the sound that we're striving for the upcoming album.
This one's called Crying the Blues Again.
Do you have a release or kind of an idea when that's supposed to?
The goal right now is to get it out before the end of the year. It would be great to get it out around Christmas time, and then after the first of the year start pushing singles. There's not really any kind of rules written in stone on how you release an album, when you release it, and how you release singles. But definitely don't want to be trying to release singles during the holidays, because all the radio stations are playing Christmas music, and so you generally want to shoot for the first of the year or maybe springtime. But the goal right now is to have the album out before the end of the year, and it's in progress right now.
Okay. You were talking about Creed Fisher, and you were talking about Brett, and then I know from Matt, you surround yourself with musicians a lot of the time. Right. And I'm wondering how much of that is just because you like being around, people that are just musicians like you, or how much of that is just because you want to surround yourself with creative people to try to bring out?
I don't know that I have a solid answer for that I would have to think too hard about. I'll tell you that just what happens is I spend a lot of time doing three things, and that is making music, riding motorcycles, and being a Freemason. So I hang around with a lot of Masons, a lot of motorcycle riders, and a lot of musicians. But that said, I do keep my circles maybe a little tighter and a little smaller than you may think. Masons, of course, are a small group. Motorcyclists, you have to be careful. You don't want to ride with just anybody. And you want to talk about that wild ass personality you were talking about. That's to be found in the motorcycle world much, much more over than in the musician world these days. Musician wise, it's a matter of, we're sort of in this golden age. America, the Western world, is in a golden age right now. We have all of this free time. Everybody's got free time, more free time than what we know what to do with. You got the Apple Cider Club. I've got Tim Kreitz Adventures on YouTube. I mean, we have all of this time. And so people are naturally inclined to do creative things with their free time. So what that turns out is a society where, well, yeah, I work down at the gas station during the week, or I work, I deliver mail during the week. But in the evenings and on the weekends, I'm an actor, or I'm a model, or I'm a musician, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, all these creative things. So you will generally find that you probably hang around with people who at least fancy themselves musicians more than you think you do, maybe even if you don't know it and it takes you a while to discover it. And so I think that all sort of amalgamates into just the general culture that we're in right now. And so how I establish myself within that is finding good people within my areas of interest who are people of character, who make good friends, who do what they say they're going to do. They don't lie, they don't cheat, they don't steal. And I've been very fortunate to find a lot of musician friends who fit that bill. Guys like, of course, Matt. He's also a brother Freemason. He's a guy that literally one of my best friends. I'd take a bullet for that guy. Same thing with Britt. He and I have been together making music for well over 20 years right now. So through the magic of music, you also find other types of life magic. And that's part of the beauty of music to me.
How much crossover do you see kind of with the Masons, with your music, with your moto-vlogs? How much will one influence the other?
It's kind of funny you mentioned that because I just shot a moto-vlog today about Freemasonry. I went out to a cornerstone we had leveled at a school, and that was the subject of the episode. I'm actually editing that right now. I was in my edit bay when you called me to come over here. There's a lot of crossover, and part of that is extremely deliberate on my part. I want to figure out a way to take my interests and make them cross over and intermingle with one another. It's more spice of life for me. So when I'm out riding motorcycles, I try to figure out ways, especially in the filming process, to overlap my other interests into that. I've written songs about riding motorcycles. I've written 2 songs. In fact, on the second Dingo Sanctuary album, there is a song called Midnight Ride that was a popular song. And then I released a single. When I say released a single, I released it as a single. I didn't release it to radio as a single with a radio promoter. I just released the song. And it's a song called All I Want to Do Is Ride. So there's a lot of overlap there. I try not to, you have to be careful because you can get cheesy real quick trying to forcibly overlap all your interests, but I think I make it work most of the time anyway.
Talking about your motovlog for just a little bit, how did that get started, and how did you kind of get that to the point where you are now?
So how motovlogging started for me was I bought a Triumph Bonneville, a 2013 Triumph Bonneville, added it to my bike stable. And I was interested in this one type of exhaust system to put on the bike. I went looking on YouTube for videos about this exhaust system, and I found this channel. It was a channel called Shade Tree Surgeon. And this guy, this big burly guy with a beard and riding this big Triumph Rocket 3, was talking about his girlfriend's Triumph, which was a Triumph Speedmaster, and it had the exact same exhaust system that I was interested in. And so I start noticing this guy's making something called moto-vlogs. And I thought, man, I've been doing professional video for a long time, and I'm into motorcycles. This is a great way to combine these two things. Well, it turns out he and I ended up becoming friends, and we're great friends to this day. We were supposed to meet in California in August when we went out for the California ride, but he broke his foot in a dirt bike accident, so he didn't get to come. So we have yet to meet face-to-face, but Josh Laurenti is his name. Josh and I have become really good friends online, doing Google Hangouts together and sharing each other's videos and that sort of thing. And I can't wait to meet the guy in person. That's the guy who got me into motovlogging. And it all kind of went from there. It sort of has developed and morphed and evolved from there.
Okay. Going back to your music, what's the, other than the album, what's the current state of, your Tim Kreitz Band, and then where are you hoping it's moving, or it's going to move forward to?
Right now, I'll be honest with you, I've never been more satisfied with the band as a project than I am right now, and a big part of that is because Matt is a part of it. Between Britt, who I'm best friends with, and Matt, that I'm best friends with, we have a band that is absolutely, and you can believe this if you want to, but we are on YouTube, so there's, as bad as they're trying to censor it right now, I think I can get away with saying this. We call it the no bullshit band. There's no personality problems. We all see eye to eye on the kind of music we want to play, how we want to play, where we want to play, and when we want to play. And so it's like a dream come true right now, and so I'm really satisfied with it. Goals-wise, I want to get the album out. I would like to have another charted single in Texas off of the album, at least one. And we're looking right now at putting together a bigger touring package where we can go further. We've since getting Matt in the band, we've kept the shows more or less in the West Texas area. Up north toward Lubbock, we're looking at stuff down toward Big Bend, Terlingua, and some of those little quirky clubs out there. But otherwise, man, we've just been in the West Texas area, as far north as Lubbock, as far east as San Angelo, that sort of thing. We want to expand that out just a little bit, get back into doing some of the San Antonio, DFW, Houston shows, that sort of thing that we've been doing over the past few years that we haven't been doing for the past 6 months or so.
I know it seems kind of lately you guys have been doing a little bit more road type shows than what I've kind of seen or kind of heard from before. And then I know kind of what you were talking about, just kind of a perfect union between the three of you guys. I know at that end of the summer thing with you guys, that was the first time I'd seen you play, and it was the chemistry that you guys had was just really on point. I think to where it was just everything just seemed to kind of fit together to where it was just a great show.
First time I saw her, I knew that she was wrong for me. But I thought that I would tame her. My pride is on skew with my abilities. Even as time went by, she stayed quiet as right. But I was standing on the freight train, trying to do the right thing, laying on my head out of the line. Standing on the freight train, trying to do the right thing, living out the real bit, just in time, just in time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I appreciate you saying that. But you can tell when three guys love hanging out together, and then when you're making good music on top of that, there's sort of an added magic to it, and I think people do feed on that. They know that these are three guys who are really good friends. By the same token, I think that some bands, you can look at the way they behave on stage or before and after a show, and you can tell whether or not they hate each other or not. And there's plenty of that in Texas music. So I'm just really blessed right now, and I'm enjoying the moment. The Dalai Lama said that there are only 2 days that you can that you can't affect, and that's yesterday and tomorrow. But you can affect today, and you can enjoy today, and you can do things today. So that's sort of my philosophy right now, not only in music but in life. I'm just trying to enjoy today. Yep. And a lot of things that have happened over the last year or two have sort of changed my view on life to where I went through 10 years of just being a worrier. I worried about everything. I worried in my 30s I was worried about retirement at 32. I was just too much of a worrier. I was just worried about this and worried about that, and everything that could go wrong I was worried about. And one thing I realized is that worrying is a total waste of time. It's a complete and utter waste of time. I watched a very good friend of mine work his finger to the bone in a job he didn't particularly like for about 25, somewhere between 25 and 30 years, just so he could get to retirement. Oh, I can't wait to get to retirement, because then I'm finally going to get to do all the things I want. My wife and I are finally going to get to go all the places we wanted to go, do all the things we ever wanted to do. And the year he retired, his wife got sick and ended up passing away. So that was an object lesson for me. It was that tomorrow ain't guaranteed. You want to believe for tomorrow and do all the right things to ensure that you get to tomorrow. You don't want to just act wild and crazy because tomorrow may never come. That's a stupid way to approach life, I think. But you do want to recognize that what you have is right now. And so no matter what I'm doing, right now I'm trying to just enjoy this to the fullest, just hanging out with you and doing this interview, just being in the moment more. And that has helped me a lot musically, because it has sort of helped me to let down some of my, I guess, inhibitions about songwriting. Okay. There were certain things that I wouldn't approach subject matter-wise. There were certain things I wouldn't approach style-wise because I thought either they weren't me or maybe they didn't deserve to be explored. And I'm starting to let down some of those walls now. And now everybody's telling me, man, I'm really liking the songs that you're writing right now. I'm really liking this song or that song. We've got this upcoming album that we're working on. We've got people coming up requesting the songs already that we're playing live that are going to be on the album. That's encouraging to me. And there's something about the coordination between that happening and me sort of changing my outlook on life. I think they're connected somehow. So.
See, the biggest thing I took away from that is that we can expect a freeform jazz album from you.
Yes, Jazz Odyssey.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like Hemispheres, but it's total jazz.
See, I can picture it already. What's your family? Kind of think about with everything with your music and even with your moto-vlogs. How does your family react to it? And
my family loves the moto-vlogs, especially the kids. I don't have kids. My wife and I don't have kids. That, for whatever reason, was never in the cards for us. But my nieces and nephew love those videos. And so that's one of the reasons why I kind of try to keep those family friendly. Mm-hmm. If you watch the channel, I try not to cuss too much. If I end up cussing a bunch or somebody in the videos cussing a bunch, I tend to bleep that stuff out. I try to keep the subject matter wholesome and interesting and even with an educational bent to it, because I know that my nieces and nephew are watching and other kids that they hang out with are watching. My family really does like the motovlogs. My mother-in-law will watch anytime I release a motovlog. It somehow or another it shows up on the Midland Reporter Telegram's website. I'm not sure about that one, but she said, I saw on the Midland Reporter Telegram you had a new video episode come out today, and I watched it and I really liked it. We had dinner with one of my wife's co-workers and her husband, and he immediately set me down. He's an older gentleman in his 70s. He immediately set me down and wanted to talk to me about all these places I'd been in the Tim Kreitz Adventures videos. He wanted to talk about some of the ghost towns and some of the areas out near Van Horn and Toyah. And I was blown away by that. I don't realize that as the channel, which is, if I stay on track, I should be close to 10,000 subscribers on that channel by the end of the year. I don't always realize, and I should be more mindful of it, that that's 10,000 human beings out there. And you never know who those human beings are going to be. And now I'm at a point where I have people coming up to me saying, man, I really like those videos. I really love those videos. Keep making those videos. So, yeah.
I think that's really about all the questions I had for you today. The only other thing, I know we have the Tim Kreitz Adventures for YouTube that people can go and kind of find you.
Yes.
Can they still get your albums through iTunes, or?
We do not have anything on iTunes right now. Just simply because our last full album releases were so long ago. And so I went ahead and pulled those down. But you can download every Tim Kreitz Band song that I've ever recorded, almost. Maybe not all of them. But I've got 20-something songs available for download on Reverb Nation, reverbnation.com/Tim Kreitz. And there's 7 7, 8, 9 songs at the end of the playlist that are free downloads. So even if you're not going to spend any money, I would rather you not spend any. If you're not going to spend any money, I still want you to have some of my music. So of the 30 plus songs, almost 10 of them, almost a third of them are free downloads. So even if you don't have any money to spend, go get you some free music.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I said, that's everything we have. I appreciate you sitting down with me. I know I've been wanting to kind of ask you about this for a while, just to kind of sit down and talk about everything that. That you've kind of been doing, so I do appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you doing it, and thanks very much. Make me feel special. Yeah. Thanks.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. That was Tim Kreitz of the Tim Kreitz Band and Tim Kreitz Adventures. Now, down in the description below, we're going to have a link to both his YouTube channel as well as to his music page, where you can go download free songs or purchase some of the other songs that he has available. In the description, we'll also have a couple of links to a few other places that you can go check out that are going to be related to either the moto-vlogs or the music that Tim does. Now, like I said before, this was a really interesting interview for me because it gave me a chance to kind of sit down and get a closer look at someone who, quite frankly, I find to be a very interesting person. But that's going to be it for us today. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, send us a tweet, and we will see you next time. Bye!
that song.